All right, and welcome back to WBCR 88.3 The Saints. I'm Justin Kenny as always, and with me tonight, we have a very special guest. You might recognize one of his products on the on commercials and everything. We have Joseph Carr from Josh Wines. So, Joseph, thank you for being with us.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so why don't you start us off with who you are?
Well, I'm a wine producer in Napa Valley, California. I started a company 20 years ago making wine in Napa Valley under my name, Joseph Carr. And then a few years later, I developed a brand called Josh Cellars. Um, I'm originally from Rensselaer County. I didn't own a vineyard in Napa Valley, and my parents didn't own a winery or anything like that. My father was actually a lumberjack, and my mom was a librarian. And I got into the wine business on a really kind of a weird journey. Um, but yeah, a lot of my friends went to Siena College. One of my best friends, Al Hall, went there and back in 1982. And gosh, I have a whole bunch of friends that went to Siena Gunnar Cunningham. He played on the rugby team. I used to go and watch him play rugby and watch lacrosse and go down to DAPS and have a couple beers every now and then. Uh, but yeah, it's been an interesting wine journey for me.
Yeah, so one of the things I've always wondered um, about your brand is where the name Josh came from. Because, like, I know your name is Joseph, and as you pointed out, your first brand name was Joseph Carr. But where does Josh come from?
Well, that's a pretty good story. So I was making wine in Napa, and I was going broke because the cost of grapes had gone up, and I didn't know what to do. And I went and had a an afternoon with a buddy of mine out in Sonoma. His name was Tom Larson, and he owned a winery and he owned vineyards and a bottling plant. And he was a really smart guy. And he was my age. And we sat in his kitchen one day and we talked about our dads. And we had one bottle of wine, and we had two bottles of wine, and then we were into our third bottle of wine, and things got a little, started laughing and crying and talking about our dads. And he said to me, you need to make wine outside of Napa Valley. You need to make another wine, and I will help you do that. Just go get some money, which was tight at the time. And I said, okay. I didn't, I wasn't really too sure how I would do it, but we wound up making this wine, and it was all done. And I was talking to my mom about it, and I said, well, I've got this new brand going to come out, but I don't have a name for it. And I told him the story about how I sat down with Tom. We talked about our dads. And she said, well, name it after your father. I said, well, my dad's name was Joseph Carr, as is mine. She goes, no, no, no. Your dad's name is Josh. I'm like, what? What do you mean my dad's name was Josh? And I was with my sister, and I looked at my sister. I said, do you know anything about this? She goes, yeah, dad's name was Josh. I'm like, I never heard this before. Like, who's Josh? Like, who's Josh? And my mother said, well, your father used to be a stock car driver in upstate New York, Lebanon Valley, in the 50s. And all his friends called him Josh. That was his nickname. And I never heard that before. I just thought that was like the most wonderful story, because my father was a hellraiser. He lived kind of fast and all that until we were born. And but his friends called him Josh, and I thought, wow, what an amazing name, and maybe that's the brand. And and my mom wrote his name on a piece of paper, and that became the label, and that became Josh Sellers.
So it's
And I
pretty personal.
and I tell the story that I said to my mom, you know, I never heard anyone in our house call my father Josh. I never heard that before. And she goes, that's right. Because anybody that called your father Josh wasn't allowed in our house. Yeah.
So
They were all bad boys, you know. And that's where it came from. That's where it all came.
nice. So it has kind of a personal family touch to the name. And so another thing I've always wondered is when it comes to making something like music or art or wine for that matter, you always have to find a way to make yours a little bit different than everybody else's, whether it be crafting your own recipe or using the same recipe but using a different type of grape for in your case or something. How did you develop the recipe for Josh? I'm not asking you to share all your secrets, but just how
No,
did
no,
you
no, no,
come to
no.
that?
You know, actually a really good question because you know I went to college in upstate New York. I went to Geneseo State University, and I worked my way to college as a wine steward in a French restaurant.
Yeah.
And I did that and then I wound up doing that for 10 years. I was a sommelier. I became what's known as a sommelier. Um, and I always drank French wines. I really love French wines, and that's what I was schooled on. And when I started making wine in Napa Valley, I made French style wines in Napa Valley. And the New York Times wrote about me and called me a producer to watch because I was doing something very different. I was blending Cabernet Sauvignon with Merlot and Cabernet Franc and Petit Verdot, which is a classical Bordeaux architecture. And I was very happy doing that. But when I made Josh Sellers, I wanted to make more of an American style wine. I didn't want it to be this complex kind of French thing. I wanted something very fruit forward and something that the American palate would like, and really bold kind of Cabernet Sauvignon flavors and Merlot and Pinot Noir, and not get too, I guess you'd call it chefy or sommelier. I wanted just beautiful fruit forward wines, and that's the style of Josh Sellers. That they're wines that you can drink today, and you don't have to put them in a wine cellar for 5 or 7, 10 years. Because my Napa wines, you know, they're good on release, but they need time to age. And Josh was like, okay, here's the wine of the day, and that's what I really really wanted to do. And I hope that answers your question. But yeah,
Yeah,
move forward.
yeah, that answers it very well. Now, like, so as somebody who is kind of a wine novice, like myself, I'm more attuned to craft beer and other things like that. What is it? Because like a lot of people, whenever they talk about wine,
Takes a lot of craft beer to make a good wine.
yes,
Because at the end of the day, all the winemakers and all of us, when we get done work, we make craft beer.
yeah. So what I was gonna ask was, um, so a lot of people when they talk about wine versus like other types of alcohol, maybe besides like bourbon with like Kentucky, but when they talk about wine, they only really talk about certain regions. Like in New York, we have the Finger Lakes, and some places on Long Island try to do wine, but New York is slowly or kind of readily becoming a beer state. But in America, it's mostly just California. So, what is it about geography that's so important to wine? Because you see this all over the world too, with Australia. When I was in Kenya last year, they said the only place that you want to go for wine in Africa is South Africa. What is it about geography in wine?
Well, I spent a lot of time in South Africa. Well, first off, you have to understand wine's produced in almost all the countries uh, culture in major countries produce wine, including Russia, Japan, Australia, and Germany, France, Spain, Argentina, Chile. It's very much a cultural thing. And the microclimates of where they're produced and the soil of where they're produced predominantly explain the styles of the wine. So the Finger Lakes, for example, the Finger Lakes have this amazing kind of shale soil content. They also have the same uh, weather microclimate as uh, the wine producing regions of Germany. Of Germany. So some of the best wines that are made in New York in the Finger Lakes are Rieslings. So very similar to the wines made in the Moselle or the Rhine region of Germany. It's a little too cold to make Pinot Noir and Cabernet Sauvignon. So between the soil and the climate, that's what kind of determines what grapes grow the best. So you have Germany, Long Island is all Long Island's a maritime climate close to the ocean. So they can make some good white wines and they can make some good Pinot Noir. But then if you go to California, Napa Valley's climate and soil is very similar to Bordeaux, very similar to the Bordeaux region of France. So Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, those grapes, whilst they're thousands of miles apart, the soil and the climate are conducive to making those types of wines. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
It does, yeah.
And
And then another,
South Africa's like South Africa, I think, is probably one of the most exciting viticultural regions in the world. They just need to get their shit together. I don't know what it's going to take. I've been down there a number of times, but man, they got everything. They got the climate, they've got the soil, they've got everything, but they can't. Their political environment is so screwed up that they just can't. They bring down French winemakers. They've got the money to do it, and they make very good wines. A lot of them, the really best wines, never get out of the country, which is the
yeah,
case in a lot of places. But I like South Africa,
yeah.
and I worked
So
in Australia. I worked in Australia for many years. Australia's they make some great wines too. Shiraz, Syrah, I mean, beautiful wines, and wine is very much part of the Australian culture. It's Australians drink a lot of wine. They drink a lot of beer too, but their wine regions are amazing, and most of them are near the ocean, not too
yeah,
far from the ocean.
yeah. And then another thing you see a trend in alcohol right now. So you see a lot of celebrities kind of coming in. Like you have The Rock with his tequila. In wine, there's pretty much the only real celebrities I can think about right now are two football people, being Dick Vermeil and Drew Bledsoe, who own wineries.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot of other celebrity alcohol, but not much in wine. What do you think is kind of holding celebrities back from getting into wine versus other alcohols?
Well, in my previous life, I was the person that created and developed Greg Norman Estates, who was a golfer. He was an Australian golfer and very famous. And
Yeah,
he was a big wine collector, and he wanted to buy a winery. And I was working for the Foster's Brewing Company at the time, and their wine division was called Mildara Blass. I was president of the company here in North America. And we convinced Greg not to buy a winery, but for us to make a wine for him. And he was involved with it to a certain extent. Um, pretty much towards the end though, he was just a licensing agreement. Though he did make some good money, and we made some very good wines for him. In terms of other celebrities, I mean, listen, um, the guy that made the tequila, he made a lot of money on that deal. There's more money in spirits because it's cooking things as opposed to wine. Wine is a very capital investment proposition. I mean, it takes 2 years to make a bottle of wine. It takes 2 years. I mean, you can make 1,000 cases of tequila in 2 months if you got all the resources set up. So for celebrities to get involved, they have to kind of be willing to take the long haul or partner with a big corporation like Behringer or Diageo or someone like that to do that. I mean, we actually have I have an affiliation with Jim Nance, who's doing a beautiful Pinot Noir out of Sonoma, and he does have a bit. He has more of an interest in it than most celebrities. He's kind of a little bit more involved with it, but it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of money. But the spirits end is so hot right now that most of these guys are going down that road, and then they make their brand, they license it, they're probably not that involved with it, and then they sell it for who knows, $500 million and make a paycheck. But that's nothing that I've really kind of paid too much attention to.
Yeah, and I think for most people, it's just like it's the whole entire like celebrity culture that gets them interested in some of it. Like, how The Rock has like a huge following. Greg Norman back in the day when he was the Shark had a huge following.
Right.
Although now many people, besides those who follow golf, might not know who Greg Norman is. But it's one of those things where it seems that you have to have really a passion for wine to be successful, and it can't just be a monetary thing.
Yeah, I mean, spirits is fashion and hype and all that, and wine is fashion too. There's a lot of fashion in wine, and it kind of comes and goes and ebbs and flows. Um, Greg Norman was actually a really nice person. I loved working with him. I know he's been controversial with this lift golf thing, but we raised so much money for children's cancer 20 years ago. He was a very nice man. I haven't spoken to him in probably 5 or 6 years, so I don't know what he's doing, but he was one of the guys that we wound up with his brand raising a lot of money for children's cancer, and that was very philanthropic of him. So, but all these
Yeah.
other people, I don't really know what they're doing. We're
Yeah,
all
it's
we're all on the internet. I blew up the internet a couple weeks ago with a Josh meme, so I'm still recovering from that.
yeah, and I mean that's kind of the trend we see now, but you did just walk into another question I was going to ask you, which is that Josh Wines has seemingly created this whole entire meme culture online. So can you tell us a little bit about that and kind of that developed on your end, or you think that just organically developed? Like,
It
talk to us a
totally
little bit about that.
it totally organically developed. We had nothing to do with it. The person that created that first meme was out of Atlanta, and I kind of think I met him because I used to do a whole bunch of charity stuff in Atlanta, and if I met somebody and they said, "Oh, we really like your wines," I would always say, "Well, give me your address and and I'll send you a case of wine." I mean, I used to send wine to everybody, and somebody created this meme, and the next thing you know, there's 25 million posts in 48 hours, and then that escalated to being on Saturday Night Live, and nobody with our team with marketing can even explain it. It's just this phenomenon, and now it's every beverage company in the country in the world is going, how does Josh Sellers get this much attention so quickly? And it was really great. I mean, there were a lot of critical things that happened through it, but we just kind of laughed and said, listen, let's not take it, let's not take it too seriously if somebody doesn't like it or wants to criticize the wines. We didn't really care about that. We were just happy that the brand got exposure and there were so many amazing, positive, funny things that came out of it that um, and also because Josh Sellers, we do a little we do a lot of philanthropic projects with first responders and military and education and arts and stuff like that, and we were very pleased that that got we didn't have to tell people about that. It got echoed throughout the internet and social media, and I would hope that some of the things that we have done have now been recognized and maybe contributed to. But yeah, it was kind of crazy. My phone blew up. I had to call my daughter and ask her what a meme was. I didn't. What a meme was.
Yeah, well, I mean, right now a lot of people know Josh Wine just because of those memes, so it helps you out a lot marketing wise.
I know it's crazy. It's nuts.
Yeah, because right now the big memes for brands are pretty much Stanley Cups and Josh Wines.
Stanley Cups, yeah, yeah. So the Stanley Cup, that was pretty funny. So the producer of Saturday Night Live texted me that day. He his name's Chris, and Joe, his partner, is an artistic director of a theater where I live, and they've been to my house, and we've had a lot of fun times. And he just texted me and said, "You better watch TV tonight because we're gonna we're gonna blow it up again." And Dakota Johnson did that big Stanley Cup skit, and it was really funny, and just it got like a million views on YouTube. And we've had an advertising campaign. I did an ad a few years ago. It's gotten 150 million views on YouTube, which it's amazing how people really. I like to say, I like to assume that people look at these things and realize that they're authentic, and that resonates.
Yeah.
It's not some made up weird bullshit marketing thing. That it's about my life, and it's about a tribute to my dad, and it's about being part of a community, many communities if we can. And I think that resonates, and I think a lot of people recognize that it's real, and I attribute that to the success of everything that we've done.
Yeah, and so we're coming up towards the end of the interview. And so the one way I kind of usually like to end these things is to ask the person I'm interviewing, kind of if there's anything they want to get off their chest, whether it be about the industry they work in or something they want to talk about, but they haven't got the chance to yet, um, just to say it. So for you, if there's something that you want to say about whether it be the spirits industry or the wine industry or just marketing or whatever, what would that be?
Well, I'm assuming your audience is a college young people and who are aspiring to do great things and follow their path in life. And all I can say is, we're on this crazy journey, and you never know where we're going to go and what we're going to do. You think you're going to be one thing, and you wind up. Listen, I went to college on a wrestling scholarship, and I wound up studying ballet. I was a ballet dancer, and then I worked in a French restaurant, and then I became a wine producer. So you never know how life is going to throw you a ball, and whether you're going to hit it or it's going to hit you. But I would always say to young people, um, to, yeah, follow your dreams. Never forget to dream, and never forget to imagine what you can do, and find somebody you love that shares that with you. You know, I started this company from nothing with my wife, and we had a picnic table. That was our desk. We shared a laptop computer, and we wound up refinancing our home to start this little company, which became Josh Sellers, and became, you know, one of the biggest things in the wine industry ever. You know, my wife passed away 6 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I look back how, you know, of all the things that we've achieved and the people that we've been able to influence and be part of these bigger than wine initiatives. And I just think that for your listeners to go home tonight and find your best friend and have a glass of wine and tell a story and share it. That's what you should do. The rest will all come along somehow, some way.
Well, that's definitely a great piece of advice to end on. So with that, we'll have to end it here. So this has been Justin Kenny on WBCR 88.3 The Saints with Joseph Carr from Josh Wines. So Joseph, thank you for being with us.
Go Saints! Go Saints! Good basketball team. Good lacrosse team.
Yeah.
I don't know about the rugby anymore.
They did win a national championship a few years ago.
Rock on. Peace out.
So for all of you out in Radio Land, thank you for listening. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.